Great. Lash, thanks for making the time to be with us this afternoon.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. I'm sure you're quite busy, and so we'd like to get straight into it as quickly as possible.
Absolutely.
You're someone who's made a self-image as not just a model, but someone with amazing style. And then you found a way to turn it into a business. How did that happen for you?
I think my background's super interesting. So you mentioned a model, right? I wouldn't go as far as calling myself a model. Yes, I have done modeling. Yes, I've done a lot of work in fashion from a both model and design perspective. But my background, at least academically, is from IT. I've got an IT background, right? So taking that IT background, taking all the work we've done across the board, like touring with Skep around music, culture, also then picking up, as we just spoke about, the kind of the fashion and the music, fashion and the modeling side of things. Mm-hmm. It was all about kind of bringing those worlds together, right? We've all gone through a super challenging time with the pandemic, and we don't want to press on it, but it all impacted us differently. So hopefully in positive ways as well as negative ways, that everyone's tried to kind of build upon it. But the point there is that what I took away is that we've got to build on our strengths, right? Mm-hmm. And part of that is me thinking, what is my strengths? What parts of me can I build upon without relying on anyone else, right? And that could be a check, that could be motivation, that could be being allowed outside my house, right? And building those strengths was basically bringing my IT background, bringing my fashion, music, culture background together, right? And that's probably where Steelo popped up from, if I'm honest with you.
Okay, that's interesting. When doing some research, I was obviously speaking to people close to you, and they said, oh yeah, Lash. He would show up in the cleanest suit at the office every now and then. So it wasn't quite, you weren't the typical guy walking through the offices at the time. And now we have Steelo.
Yes.
Yeah. So first of all, what I understand is that Steelo brings tech, which is your strengths, as well as music and fashion, into a singular place. Absolutely. By being a resource, not just for talent and brands who are seeking for their products and services to be consumed in a different way. So this is a really interesting marketplace model that you're building. Mm-hmm. And there's something you mentioned a lot called community steer.
Yeah.
So the question I have first is, how did you come up with the name Steelo?
Yeah.
How did you get to Steelo? And then what do you mean by community steer? And why is this approach important to you?
Cool, absolutely. So yeah, I'll break that up. And I think you're spot on. You kind of pitched Steelo back to me right on the button, right? There's a lot of areas we touch. There's a lot of kind of bags to our company, right? So you're kind of spot on there. But the name Steelo, so from a London background, we used to use a word called steez, which kind of spoke about style, fashion, Steelo, right? And that is something that we used to be used in kind of my area as a slang, but that's something that was kind of close to home. So when someone looked good, you say, oh yeah, he's got steez, he's got X, Y, Z. So it was part of a slang, but we can build upon that to say that both Italians and Spanish people use that word to address style and fashion as well. It's like estilo as well as Steelo, right? So it had that kind of familiarity with us from where I'm from, but also with the fashion and the style that we're kind of pioneering in, if you like, right? So that's where the name came from. In terms of what we're trying to build here, you're absolutely right. We're a community first platform, right? We are a company, we are a brand, but in terms of the product we're building, it is a platform for the community. And you talk about the community steer. And what I mean by that is that everything we've done to date and what we'll continue to do will be from the steer of the community. For example, if you look back to June, when we started Steelo, we went out there and started doing a lot of styling projects, right? We're going into our archive, getting some of our collections that we have with different brands and doing styling. And then from that, you got the behind the scenes video as just like a secondary part of what we were doing. Mm. But the community straight away grabbed hold of them videos and said, hold on, we like those videos. There was a big uptake. There was a lot of traction that came from the videos. So straight away we pivoted to now make the forefront offering to our community is the video on demand, as you can see today, right? So if you talk about what we're building, we are building a platform for the community. The video on demand is like the first step of that platform. We're calling it season 1, right? And the analogy I like to use is that we're trying to be the Amazon of fashion, culture, music, call it what you want, the scene. And in that, what I mean is if you go back to when Amazon first launched, they used to sell books, remember? From selling books, they understood, they built a community, understood what the community liked, what the kind of things the community were interested in. And then from that pool, started building the products and services on top of that. So that is the kind of steer that we're trying to take from our community, in the sense that we're going to use the video on demand to bring the community together with common interests, fashion, music, culture. And then from that, start to understand some of the marketplaces that they can benefit from. And, you know, one of the biggest focuses for us is the community, right? So when we talk about marketplace, it's a marketplace where our community can thrive off, become self-sufficient on, right? We know, like YouTube, you can post a video on YouTube today and you'll get incentivized and monetized, but how that works, only you know. Right? There's algorithms behind that we cannot even understand, but we want to simplify that and bring that home for our community and make a platform which, as much as us doing it, when I say us, you can see I always put the community first on our platform, but something that belongs to us, right? Whether you look at that because I can send a video to Lasha and he'll post it, or I can invite Lasha to my pop-up, or Lasha will have a giveaway with Steelo in Nigeria, whatever it makes it feel homely to them. Is that what we're trying to do at Steelo? And I hope that answers your question, because I can talk for hours and hours on that. It's very, very, very passionate topic for me, as you can imagine, right? So yeah, I'll stop there and hand back over.
Yeah, no problem. You actually set me up for the next question quite perfectly, because you said belongs to us. And, you know, it seems to me like your mission to some degree is also about taking the powers back, us taking the powers back. What do you mean by this?
Absolutely. I feel that I've got to try and make sure I keep this very above board, this answer. But when I say the powers back, I mean just self-sufficient. I feel, going back to what I said before, the pandemic was difficult, more that we had to look back within. Like, what are my strengths? What can I do today to continue through this difficult period? And I felt that as a community, including myself, like, I'm not, you know, separate from it. We're relied on the powers that be a lot, whatever that may be. And that powers that be has been potentially capitalizing on some of the skills, the assets, the creativity that we have. And in some cases, you see parts of the community shouting about it, complaining about it, expecting something from it. But I don't believe in all that. I think that's all nonsense. It's all about having and understanding your own value, right? This world's about supply and demand, right? You create supply, you create the demand, and then you can start to transact and grow it to whatever you want it to be. So going back to your direct question about bringing the powers back, I want to create a platform where a creative talent can create something, can make, whether it be a song, an album, or whatever it may be, or a piece of clothes, and put it somewhere and capitalize off that. Right? You spoke about marketplaces, whether it be you're someone who's very creative with your Instagram posts and you have all these kind of lovely aesthetics that you post on your Instagram. Going back to the world of Tumblr, when you can get subscription for that, you should be able to get paid by your users. Whether 10p or £1 million, you should be able to have a platform that you can basically monetize of that. That's something we want to do on Steelo. You may be a stylist or not, but have a massive archive of clothes that you would like to rent. We want to create a platform that you can rent that. These are just some examples that we're talking about, but it's all about bringing the powers back to the individual and back to our community. And I'll close on this point. Africa's number one for us. I'm not going to shy away from that. Africa's where we're from. It's somewhere where I think is completely untapped. There's a lot of value to come out there, a lot of creativity that has been coming out of there. And I see a lot of brands going over there. There's a lot of nice emails getting sent over there for nice projects, etc. But I believe Africa is where it's at. I may be biased to say that, but we're putting a lot of focus in Africa. So going back to some of the giveaways and things like that we've done, we're first going to give back to reward all the beauty, all the powers that Africa has given us before we start to find a way to transact and then enable them to take the powers back and be successful. I hope that answers your question, because it's, again, a very passionate topic for me. But again, I hope it paints the picture that you wanted.
Yeah. It seems like, in a way, Steelo is a place to activate the nascent talent that's existing, you know, not just in Africa, in the diaspora, globally. If
the platform, right? It's a platform to enable it. We are a platform. I always kind of stress that. So when you look at the videos and the kind of things we do on the platform, we're just a user of that platform, arguably. But we want to encourage the community to continue doing that, right? So even if you look at like a Netflix example, Netflix original series is like the Steelo work, but we're encouraging all these other creators to come and continue to do it on our platform to the point where advertisers start paying us crazy amounts to incentivize you guys directly for that. And they won't be as a complicated algorithm as you see in the likes of YouTube and those other tech companies out there doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when you think of the future of Steelo now in the sort of the next, let's say 5 years, mm-hmm. where do you envision it going?
I'd say we are looking at the 5 year, but at least in the 3 year plan. Okay. We are going to be, if not the biggest, but one of the biggest platforms out there, right? And by that, what I mean is that we're going to work to ensure that we're building something, our community, going back to the things we spoke about before, community steer, bring the powers back. We're building something from our community. And one of the key things that will set us apart from everyone else is, one, as I mentioned, we're pioneering in this space. The first time you can talk about tech, music, fashion, all in the same platform. But also one thing that's super, super important for us is to build a platform for our community to grow and build off, right? We want our community to be going off and saying, oh, I'm from the world of Steelo. Whether that be from a production standpoint, whether because you dropped our video, your video on our platform, but we want to be ingrained in the culture. A lot of these big companies, they've got in their board meetings, they're in there talking about maybe diversity and sustainability and all these buzzwords. But for us, that's all innate. We're naturally diverse, naturally sustainable. All these great words that they're strategizing to become, we are that. And that's where we're going to win in this game. So just to conclude, we will be one of the biggest tech platforms out there.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. When I think of, tech, what my mind goes to immediately with regards to your work was recently there was an NFT collection that you dropped featuring Skepta. That was quite interesting to me. It's on OpenSea if anybody listening wants to check it out. It's a different way of thinking about art in general. And so from your perspective, having done this and made this progress in a field that quite frankly is still opening up. Mm-hmm. What are some of the lessons you've learned from this experience? And how do you think artists could think of NFTs in their own mediums?
That's a fantastic question. And I think it kind of goes back to the kind of theme of this, that we're pioneering. We're not cutting edge. We're trying to be bleeding edge with a lot of this stuff, right? And one of the key things that you touch upon there is technology is something that is sometimes a bit distant from our community in terms of knowledge, in terms of access, or call it what you want. So one of the key things what we're doing, again, going back to this buzzword of community, and it's a buzzword because everyone uses it, but we are the community. So one of the things we're trying to do is democratize such technologies, such new cutting edge things that are coming from Bitcoin all the way down to NFTs, right? So if you talk about what we've done with the Skepta NFT, it was more just a proof of concept. So one, understand the technology for ourselves. It's all well and good reading about it, but until you do it, until you put something on OpenSea, until you've minted something, you haven't really done it. And then now we've done that, it's more about showing our community, one, we're familiar in this space and we're bringing you on this journey with us, but also the value in our content. Showing that all these pieces of content that we create, put out there, throw onto other platforms like YouTube, Instagram, XYZ, they're all worth something to somebody, right? And that is what we're really trying to show our community as well, that all this content that we are creating, look what we're doing as just a user on Steelo, for example, right? You could also do that and also think about ways, to your point about different artists and creatives, of also monetizing your work as well in a more sustainable way that you can control and also continue to get paid off when you without getting too technical, when you start talking about perpetual royalties where you continue getting paid on your asset as you grow, as it sells. So just to conclude there, one, we wanted to prove the concept. Two, wanting to show that, all right, we're in this space, we know what we're doing, and we're going to hopefully start to democratize that for our community, but then show the opportunity that's ahead of us. One, I'll flag it for our perspective. We're planning to roll out some more NFTs. It's probably starting with our Steez sessions, right? We're going to roll some out in the next, I think, month or so. But again, all these things I mentioned that we are going to do are going to be exclusively available to our community, our subscribers, right? That's the key thing that we want to kind of put out there. We're trying to build a community of people with common interests who all want the benefit of the community. And by that is having some form of skin in the game, which is your subscription, right? So in the roadmap is to launch some NFTs, but also work with our community, whether it be artists, talent, creatives, to also start releasing some NFTs and start to explore some of these areas with yourselves. Because I'll close here. One of the things you notice that we do go into different pockets, whether it be with DSF in a kind of beauty range, or whether it be Leomi doing her podcast stuff, we go into all these pockets to explore it and hopefully grow these areas with our community. So NFTs is something that, with our experience, we can also now bring to our community and say, all right, guys, have you thought of this? And find new ways to kind of bring that power back, as we mentioned earlier on. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. I was going to ask you, because you're very community focused, community driven. And at the same time, you want to democratize. So it seems like they're two opposites, right? You want to open it up, but you also want to serve a small group of people. How do you balance that?
That's a good question. So when I always talk about democratize, I have to be candid, and I'm always speaking for our community. There's no restrictions to where our community can go. I mentioned some kind of distinct worlds of, I'll be in a concert with Dua Lipa and then I'll be over with Poco Lee in Nigeria, right? So there's no real end to our community, but we're building this for our community. I keep stressing this word. So when I talk about democratizing, it's about going out to these other places where technology is being spoke about. All this new innovative bits and bobs are coming to our world, right? And bringing that back to our community. So that's the angle I'm always talking about, like bringing it home, showing the value is here. And one of the key things I didn't mention before is super important for us to go back to the likes of Lagos and Accra and all these places and say, all the value's here. We have a sick time here. All the beauty, creativity, everything you can think of is here. We don't have to run there to quantify that. It exists here. So that is part of it. So when we kind of finish that Robin Hood approach of things, then we can start maybe opening the door for mainstream and all of that kind of outside world. But to start off with, everything we're doing is for our community. And we're really working hard to build that. And the community are very present and they will continue to steer us. And yeah, that's who we're here battling for right now, at least at this stage of our kind of an early stage, startup stage, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And you raised a point that we spoke about briefly while you were here in Accra. And I just wanted to touch a bit more on that, which is that essentially this is the source. You don't need to look outside. You don't need to prepare yourself for consumption outside. What makes this, how come you have this sort of mindset?
And that's an interesting topic because we spent some time talking about that whilst I was over there. But you're absolutely right. The value's there, and I know it's difficult because the one that always gets us is the check. Till we know our value, the check will always get us. But one thing I always say, it's easy said than done. We all need to pay bills. So you say yeses, you say no's, but you have to value your no, because I always believe the check is never enough. It's never what it's deserved. No one's going to pay you more than your services or your talent is required. So you're always, if you're selling something, you're going to sell it for cheaper than it's potentially worth. You can argue that for days and days until the cows come home. But one thing I'll say is that there's a lot of value in Africa, which is it's starting to reach the world. And I still say slowly because people are only starting to look now. I'm 31. I've been African for 31 years, but only in the last 5-6 years, everyone wants to jump about Africa and be there and get all the excitement. So it's all about, and it's difficult and it's a work in progress, but it's all about like the community, whether it be in Africa or anywhere else in the world, getting together and understanding their value and then starting to kind of supply that value to the demand in the outside world, if that makes sense, right? So going back to what we spoke about as well, these brands may be looking at us for different elements of creativity or looking to us to help showcase their diversity. But sometimes we inside need to talk about what we're doing with our talent. Are we always going to go there, or are we going to start to build our own one? Maybe for half the cost today, but in the future, it will give back. So hopefully Steelo is going to be a platform to allow our community to kind of build off and showcase to the world. But it's not more, and I'll close here again, sorry. It's not more about how do we get over there. It's about how do we create value where we are. And that being in Africa. That's one thing I want you to kind of think about and take away.
Yeah, no, amazing. No, I think that's a perfect perfect place for us to close. You know, that's probably the biggest point that I'm taking home from this conversation. And I do hope that anyone who's listening is able to get that value as well and take it into their own practice and into their own lives. But on behalf of our own community, you know, to yours, you know, thank you for making the time, you know, and yeah, we look forward to seeing the growth and evolution of Steelo over the years.
I really appreciate the opportunity, and again, just to keep it on brand. So my team that shout, I mean, the platform is launching this year. We're aiming for about June, or same July, August. So please keep an eye on our socials for that coming as well. And yeah, look out for us, because we're looking to head back to your side as well in the next month or so for another giveaway event. So just keep an eye on our socials. Lots of interesting stuff to come. And yeah, thanks again for the opportunity.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.